Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and John Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Hello and welcome to our podcast guest. The title really for our session today is Relationship-Centered Workplace Collaboration. We'll be talking about key principles, and we are delighted to welcome back our special guest, Jeremy Lindley. Some of you would have heard our previous podcasts on inclusive design. If you haven't, I won't say stop this and go back to that, but you definitely need to go and listen to inclusive design. Jeremy is passionate about bringing inclusion into everything that he does, everything that they do at his workplace, which you'll hear about in a moment. And the conversation we'll be having today is how this passion for inclusive design influenced the very physical design of the workplace to build strong relationships and a real culture of inclusion. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's give Jeremy his proper bio, his proper introduction. But as you can tell, we're already excited about this podcast. So John, you're going to share a bit of background.
Absolutely, happy to do that. And as Andrew said, this is a follow-on from the last conversation we had. There was just so much more that we felt Jeremy could unpack, so we thought let's do another session and unpack it there. But for the benefit of those who haven't heard the introduction, who may not have seen the previous episode or listened or watched the previous episode, here's a bit about Jeremy. So Jeremy is responsible for transforming the design capability and output of Diageo's current brands and new products worldwide. Now, Diageo is the world's premium drinks business. And for those who don't know some of those brands, for me, it always lands when I can actually put something concrete around it. We're talking about big brands out there. We're talking about Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Gordon's, Tanqueray, Guinness. These are the premium big brands. And Jeremy will probably share some
in your cupboard.
Probably most of the stuff in your cupboard, the good stuff in your cupboard, Diageo's drinks. And Jeremy's passionate about the impact design has on business performance and the way design thinking leads to breakthrough ideas wherever it is applied. Standout projects include Johnny Walker Blue Label, the Guinness Harp Dispense font. If you're in the pubs in the UK and you're pulling Guinness pints or seeing Guinness pints being pulled, part of their team, look for the harp. That's part of their team's work. And Jeremy's winner of the DBA Design Effectiveness Grand Prix 2020 and the Johnny Walker brand home in Edinburgh, which opened in September 2021. Prior to joining Diageo, Jeremy was head of design for Tesco, responsible for the portfolio of 19,000 private label products and for leading the store formats and design teams. His early career was as a freelance designer and university lecturer. He is a Cannes Lions and TEDx speaker, chair of trustees of the charity Soulmates Academy Foundation, former chair of the Design Business Association, a member of the Design Commission advising the UK government on design policy, and a visiting lecturer at Omna's Business School.
Welcome.
So there you go. There's the man, Jeremy Lindley.
Welcome, Jeremy.
Good to be back.
Yeah, so good to have you back. And as John said, there's so much that we spoke about in the previous podcast, so much more that we could speak about. And I'm sure after this one, we'll want to do another one. But
let's come back round 3.
Let's see how we go. And I had the privilege, you very kindly invited me to the new Diageo head office in London.
Yeah,
and
we were both there.
We were both there. But I was blown away by the intentionality in the structure and the layout and the cubicles and just the thought that had gone into the design to make sure it would foster strong relationships across teams and across the organization, especially now that we're working more hybrid and more fluid. And we'd love to hear, your passion, what drove you, the things that you were intentional about in helping bring that alive. You'll have to kind of describe how it looked to give people a visual as well. I'm saying it was awesome, or it is awesome.
Exactly. I wish we had photographs we could put in here, but when people are listening on audio, we could maybe put some pictures in the show notes, but people are listening on audio, I don't know.
Yeah, but you'll have to describe it for us, Jeremy. So over to you. I don't know if you want to start with that amazing staircase or...
Yeah, look, I'll do my best, and I'll talk a little bit about the staircase and why it's important. But if I go back to the brief, so we've been in the office about 2 years. Probably about 5 years ago that we started work on the project. Chief Executive gave us what I thought was a really kind of powerful brief, which was, he said, "Listen, I want this building to reflect the culture and the values of
Wow.
Diageo." And he said, right at the heart of that, I want this to be the most inclusive workplace that we've ever had.
Okay.
What a boss.
Fantastic. Diversity and inclusion are right at the heart of Diageo's culture and values. It's something that we believe is both the right thing to do, but it leads to better business results. So we see a business benefit from diversity and inclusion. The building was, honestly, when we first acquired it, it was quite a challenge. So we're on Great Marlborough Street. We're right in the heart of Soho. It's a very long, narrow building in terms of the floor plate. It's spread across 7 floors. The people that were in there before, it had quite a sort of traditional office layout in terms of cell offices, low ceilings, fluorescent strip lighting. It felt a little bit like a dungeon. It was horrendous. I remember walking up to the architects and just thinking,
how are we going
how
to
are
do
we going
this?
to make this a really pleasant environment, let alone a really
I
inclusive
just
one?
wanted to set some context for our non-UK audience, those in the US, just to say this is the heart of central London, right in the west end of London, just off Oxford Street. Some of you will have heard of that.
Yeah.
Just think old buildings from way back, traditional buildings from way back in the day. That's the picture you want to have in your mind from what the canvas they were trying to work with.
Yeah.
So the thoughts that we had in terms of, okay, how are we going to design the building, was that we really wanted to open things up as much as we possibly could. Try and bring as much natural light in as we can. But then we were kind of thinking, how can we have people, be easily moving between the floors and not just ending up, kind of coming in, plonking themselves down, and in some way, I guess, sort of feeling isolated. So one of the sort of breakthrough ideas from the architect that really helped is, you've described it, there's a sort of cascading staircase. So right in the middle of the floor plate, going all the way from top to bottom of the building, is a staircase that it actually takes a lot of square footage out. It was one of those difficult conversations where you wanted to say, look, we've got this very expensive central London office space, and we're going to take quite a lot of the floor plate out for a staircase that runs right through the middle of the building.
Wow.
And it's a very gentle rise in terms of the staircase as well. What that does, though, is it means that transitioning between the floors is incredibly easy. And actually, we find people, if you're just going up 1 or 2 floors, you don't tend to use the lift, you just wander up the staircase. Which means that actually the movement between the floors is really easy. A whole bunch of other things that we did. So no prescribed desks. So it's all hot desking. But what we wanted to do was really encourage people to think about where they sit on that day, rather than have a space that you always sit in. Think about the people that you're working with, the people you need to interact with on that day, and you find them and you sit with them. There's some tech solutions to enable us to find each other. A whole variety of different workspaces as well. So we recognize people like to work in different ways. So there's teamwork tables. It kind of feels a bit like you're sitting around the kitchen table. So as a team, you can sit together and collaborate. I guess more sort of functional workspaces where you're going to be working for a little bit longer. They're all sit-stand desks, so that you can change your posture through the day. There's a big ergonomic benefit to sit-stand desks. If you don't have one, I'd really encourage you to try one. A desk is based on the average person, and there is no such thing as an average person. So pretty much everybody, when you sit at a normal desk, is sitting at something that's not great ergonomically. If you can change the height, you can get the height perfect, whether you're sitting or standing. And even better, you can move between sitting and standing. Then there's quiet areas. If you really need to concentrate, you can just sit in an area where calls aren't allowed, and it's a very sort of hushed zone. Lots of meeting rooms and lots of Zoom rooms, so that people aren't sitting at these workspaces and sort of distracting other people. And then a whole bunch of things that are designed to encourage people to bump into each other. So it's a fairly classic office design trick, which is you put the coffee point in the middle of the floor, so
Yeah.
everyone ends coming to the middle of the floor. So it means it's a space where you are moving around and bumping into people, and there's a lot of different zones. If you just need to grab someone and spend 10 minutes, there's different types of seating and different areas where you can go, can we just chat about this? So it makes it very easy to meet people and collaborate, but also there's things that just encourage that kind of informal bumping into people, and those kind of conversations as well. And then it's a Diageo business. All of our offices have a bar in it. We've actually got 2 bars. It's not that we drink at work during the working day. It's a non-alcoholic bar. And then in the evening, if you want to enjoy a drink with your colleagues, you pay for your drinks there. But again, it's one of those areas where actually it's just really easy to bump into people, and the spaces in the bar are used during the day just again for those informal conversations.
There's so many things that you've said that I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but I want to go right back to that staircase. It's a really big deal that shows your heart and commitment to inclusion and creating a culture where there are no divides. For a West End property, commit funds and stick to the guns to say, I'm going to make this space into a staircase. That's a really big deal. Were there any pushbacks or any challenges to making that staircase so accessible and easy to connect between the floors, given that it was taking up so much London property space?
There weren't actually, and I think the as I mentioned, the chief exec gave us the brief, and then there was the steering group, who were really committed to developing just a kind of world class kind of office space. So I don't think there was actually. I think it was a relatively easy idea to sell in. And it was interesting when we set the brief. It's one of those briefs that's actually turned out to be a well-written brief. This is pre-COVID, pre-lockdown. The brief was: imagine a future where nobody has to come into the office to do their work.
Wow.
Because the tech tools are so good that you don't need to be in the office. What would cause people to want to come into the office? And we designed it in that way. It turned out to be a stroke of genius, because of course people don't have to come to the office anymore. They can work from home.
Exactly.
And actually what we talk about when we brief people on the office is we say to people, listen, only come to the office on purpose if there's a really good reason to be there. And that reason is around collaboration.
Yes.
And we found, quite often we have, kind of guests and people coming in and they go, wow, I wish we could get as many people in our office. We've actually had a problem in that there's a couple of floors. What tends to happen is they'll gather around other people that they need to work with. And there's a couple of floors where marketing people, for example, it's just really hard to do your job without meeting people and collaborating and discussing things. So the floors where the marketers are sitting tend to be quite busy. We've had to add extra desks in to those spaces to accommodate people, because people seem to want to be there for the collaboration and the sort of informal meetings. So I think that sense of inclusivity, of the ability to propel your work forward because you can meet people and have the right sort of conversations is drawing people into the office. Inevitably, it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's when it's very busy. That seems to be the kind of new pattern. But there seems to be something about the environment that is drawing people to come together and have the sort of collaborative meetings that we need.
Wonderful. As you say, you create an environment that people want to come into. And certainly from our brief experience there, it was such a lovely place. I'd want to come back.
I want to come to it.
Really lovely. But when Andrew was talking about challenges, though, my mind went back, and maybe it's my engineering mind went back to how you shared with us some of the practical challenges of putting that staircase through the building, because it then meant that you had a massive fire risk. By putting this open staircase, opening up the floors in the middle of the building, putting if you had a fire on one floor, it would very quickly get to the next floor. But you guys managed to overcome that, didn't you? So
yeah, look, we had
how you did that?
Some great engineers, because effectively, so it's as I say, that sort of cascading staircase. it's basically a chimney. So as you say, if there was a fire, it's the perfect way to spread a fire.
Yeah.
So the engineers came up with a brilliant solution, which is if there is ever a fire alarm, there's basically sort of fire curtains that drop down in that space. They come down quite slowly because you would not want to be trapped in there when the curtains are down. So you get
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
very loud warning saying,
Yeah.
fire curtains coming down, exit the building.
Yeah.
And those kind of slowly come down to isolate. So it brought a set of engineering challenges. It's interesting, actually, there is a bit of a loss of space. What it does, though, is it also creates a whole set of kind of informal spaces, under and around the staircases, which also seem to help. Just in terms of, what we found is having quite a wide variety of different furniture and different areas where people can sit and meet and collaborate really helps. Because you don't want to just be sitting at someone's desk when you want a kind of 10-minute conversation about something. You want to be able to kind of wander to a different area. So some of those kind of nooks and crannies are really quite helpful for that.
Yeah.
Just that sense of collaboration.
Yeah, and what this says most loudly is that if you're going to commit to being inclusive in your design, you have to spend the bucks to make it happen in a real way. And this is the challenge that a lot of companies have around diversity and inclusion. If they're not really committed to it, if it's just words, when it comes to spending the money, that's where things don't happen because you're not following through on the detail to really make inclusion become a reality, even in the way that you design an office. But at Diageo, you guys have clearly gotten that right.
Yeah.
And that's the sense that we got when we were in the building, so many great places that you would want to hang out with. I felt I would be my most creative self sitting in some of those areas, and I can see the collaboration. And what a stroke of not just genius, but it just shows how forward thinking you are as a company to be having this conversation about designing a space people will want to come to if they don't have to, before COVID. And this is what lots of companies are being challenged with now. What have you observed happening in terms of relationships and collaboration within team and across team now that you have this wonderful, inspiring space to work in?
I think, it's exactly what you've said around actually just, enhanced creativity and collaboration. So I think, the reason in Diageo will spend the money on inclusion, it is we see business results coming from it. So we make a direct relationship between the diversity and inclusion that we have as a core part of our culture and our business success. I remember actually, our chairman is very inspiring. I remember hearing him talk about this and saying, listen, he thinks that one of the core reasons why Diageo is the successful business that it is because of this inclusive culture that we've got. And he said to us, listen, it does take longer. He said, I get that a culture where you've got diversity and where you genuinely seek to include with that diversity takes a little bit longer for things to get done. But when they get done better.
Yeah.
So you take that little bit of extra time to deeply understand perspectives that are other than your own, to actively listen, to get underneath the skin of the question that I love, which is help me understand. Because there's so many things I end up not understanding. You just pause for that second and help me understand. It does take a little bit longer. We're convinced that the business results are better. So it's worth the investment. It's worth investing in, a very expensive place to have an office in the centre of London, because then that's a space that's easy for everyone, wherever they're living, to get to. And where we're close to, where our products are consumed. So we're right at the heart of London's socialising area. It makes it easier for us to visit and have the relationships with our core business partners, who are our ultimate, kind of brand ambassadors. And it's worth the investment in terms of then people will want to come to the office. And we've seen the collaboration get better and the creativity get better as a result of just, people together in an environment that they want to be in, and with spaces that actually enable them to do that kind of collaboration.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned right at the beginning, actually, my mind has just gone back to that. When you spoke again about creating an environment that people want to come into, at the beginning you glossed over it, but there's this I want to denigrate a dingy old building, I'll call it, in the center of London that you first saw before you moved into it. And what was one of the things that you did to bring more light into the building? I think you
Yeah, so
mentioned it, but glossed
natural light
over it.
The
in the building.
investment. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about a third of we took a third of the side of the building off and replaced that with glazing,
Wow.
which brings natural light in.
Yeah,
It's tough to be in an environment where it's only artificial light, and then
yeah,
actually, of course, then the cascading staircase helps because then that natural light can kind of penetrate
yeah,
through the building.
yeah.
So yeah, a
Yeah,
number of
not many.
decisions to, and the reality is most of us have invested in our homes through COVID. Most of us put decent office type spaces in our homes to be able to
Yeah,
work from home. You actually need these days to provide people with an office environment that is nicer than their home in order to
yeah,
encourage them to come in. But if they
yeah,
do, if it's an environment that they feel at home and comfortable and warm and appreciated in, then they'll want to come into the office. And then you end up having those bump into kind of conversations, and you can have those collaborative meetings
Yeah.
that really move business on. Ours is very much a relationship based collegiate business where we value relationships, diversity, and inclusion. And you have to invest in that in order to really get the benefit out of working with your colleagues of different perspectives of making the work better.
This is such an important and such a powerful conversation. On one hand, it sounds like it's just office space, who cares? But research shows that one of the ways to integrate people is to be intentional about physical locations and the opportunity it creates for people to bump into each other. And one of the things I think companies are struggling with now is how do you become intentional about those accidental meetings that used to happen when everybody was in the office together? How do you become intentional about making that happen in the new world of work where we work more flexibly, more hybrid, and so on? And Diageo is clearly, ahead of the game in cracking that. What's your favorite space now in the office? I know you have different seatings, kind of cafe-like tables or the sit-stand desks and under the stairs, nooks and crannies, little quiet areas.
and you mentioned
What's
the coffee points to get people together in the last
which
episode, and the
used to be
bar and
the
so.
default
Yeah,
for most corporates is just to have a coffee or a food area in the middle of everything. But what's your favorite
Gosh,
space?
I don't know that. It's hard, isn't it? You never ask a designer what their favourite idea is because they were like, "You're asking me which is my favourite child." It's honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'll comment on the sit stand desks, which is when we were kind of doing the project, we were debating. We did a lot of research. We looked at a number of different offices. So some other corporates were very generous in letting us walk around. We spoke to our people. We tried to learn as much as possible. Through the process, I became convinced that it was really important to have sit-stand desks, even though I'd never used one. So, and we were like, oh, they're really expensive, and I'm not sure we can afford to do it across all of the desks. And in the end, I would try to persuade everyone. I said, listen, we're either going to do this or we're not. You can't have some that are and some that
yes,
aren't.
yeah,
Because there'll just be a bun fight for the ones that, and I was like,
Yeah.
let's do it with all of them. We engineered our way to finding a solution to doing that. We worked with a really good furniture company that just worked it until we could afford to do it. And when we first started moving in, I remember thinking, I have advocated for this so strongly. I better try it,
better use
hadn't I?
it.
And I love it. I absolutely love it. So I come in the morning and the desk goes up. Now it works for me because I'm in and out of meetings all day. I'm never just standing at a desk all day. So I'll be moving around the building. I'll be sitting in a quiet room doing this, that, and the other. There's a ergonomic principle, which is there's no such thing as the best position. The best position is the next position, which basically it says, look, human beings are designed to move. You should not sit at a desk all day. It's bad for you. You should sit, you should stand, you should lean, you should move around as much as you can through the course of the day. And this really helps me doing it. But I find it fascinating. There's something about, because I'm standing, it seems to be less of a barrier for people to kind of come up and ask me something than if I'm sitting.
More interruptible.
Because people, they kind of wander up and they sort of lean on the desk and I go, can I just talk to you about this? Or what do you think about that?
Interesting?
So I like it because firstly, I think from a fitness perspective, it's helping me, just move and be flexible. But I like it because people kind of wander up and lean on the desk and go, what about this? Which certainly in my job is really, really important.
Wow.
Never thought of that.
Yeah.
And, just that simple stand rather than sit opens up a whole world of conversation again. Amazing. What about challenges in terms of whether relationship challenges or going through the process of changing the work space? Any kind of challenges that you've come across that you had to overcome? Any stories that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there were change is hard for people, isn't it? And
Nobody likes it.
no one likes it, and I think there was a lot. People were just worried about the change. So, as I say, it's a hot desk, place, and no one's got their own workspace, and people were really worried about that. No, everyone's got a locker. It's not like you can't leave anything at the office, but at the end of the day, you clear your desk. Now, so you arrive in the morning, there's a tech-based solution. You scan a QR code. That tells you whether that workspace is free. You can reserve it for the day. So you've got a place for the day. But at the end of the day, you put all your stuff in your locker and you leave everything kind of... People were just really worried about it. And what we said to people is, listen, just give it a go. Just come in and give it a go. He said, I really understand the reluctance. I feel a little bit of uncertainty about it too, because I like my own space. But, we just talked to people about the idea and about collaboration and how we wanted people to think about where they sat on the day and find other colleagues and maybe move around through the day. And we had a lot of people kind of going, I've got really used to working from home. I'm never going to come to the new office. And actually, we had to. There was a little bit of stick there where we said to people, listen, everybody has to come into the office for an induction. And the incentive was, you get free lunch when you come in for your induction and all this kind of stuff. But it was kind of like, I'm sorry, but you actually have to come in for induction, because kind of in the back of my mind, we were like, just got a feeling when people see it, they'll want to come in.
Yep.
And we just said to people, listen, come in for your induction, and then I get that you're worried. I really hear it, but just give it a go. Maybe see how it works. And people seem to love it, so they've got used to it, and they're voting with their feet in that it's busy in there, and so we just worked with people a little bit to kind of help them get over some of the initial change worries.
So that's what questions have popped up in my mind now, because we've certainly come across in the work that we do a number of bosses, should we say, and organizational leads who are very keen. They are of a mindset that some people certainly should spend more time in the office. What would you say to them? What could they do? I mean, maybe I'm leading the witness here. There's certainly some things you've said already, but what message would you give to them to encourage people to come into the office, to fulfill the, what they believe is the best place for those people to be in the first place, but they're getting pushback? What would you say to them to encourage their people to come in?
I do think pull is better than push. So I think, what we've done in creating an office environment that people really want to come to, we have invested heavily in it. It's very well designed. And, the tech is great. It's got better Wi-Fi than you've got at home. It's got great coffee. It's got all the different types of meeting rooms and spaces and printers and stuff that you could need. So there's quite a lot of pull there, just in terms of the quality of what we've provided. I think that's really important. And then I think, what we've done is we've talked about, the reason that we want people to come into the office, and really worked with people around that, the benefit of kind of collaboration. And then obviously then provided the facilities that make it really easy to collaborate. So I think, being more pull than push, we haven't prescribed a number of days in the office. We have said, look, we really do. We want people to be in the office 3 days a week. It's not a rule. It's a desire. People aren't tracked in it. But I think the sort of culture of Diageo that's well known, which is this kind of collaborative culture, means that people have kind of got it. And now that they've got an environment that enables and encourages that. And, frankly, it's designed nicer than most of our homes are designed. Kind of makes people want to come in there.
Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant point about pull, because as John was saying, one of the challenges we've observed is the mindset, the kind of old school mindset that some managers will hold, that the only way they can be sure that you're performing is if you're physically present in the office beside them and they can see you and watch what you're doing, which is a negative culture. It's more about push rather than pull. There's a question that I had in there that's completely just gone out of my head. The point about collaboration being so key, because of course you've now given them the flexibility to, if there is desk work that they need to do, or thinking work, or any work that requires alone time, they can do that from home. How do you kind of measure, I guess, how do you measure performance differently now that people are free to choose, and you've not mandated they need to be in for 3 hours or 3 times a week and so on? How have you changed measuring performance, if you have?
No, I don't think we have, actually. And it's interesting. I mean, it's funny. It's, that kind of mindset, which is the only way I can check that people are doing their job is if I can physically see them doing their job. You go like, with today's tech and tools and objective and goal setting, kind of principles, you don't need to sit and watch someone doing their job. You might not know the same day, but pretty quickly you can tell if someone is working hard or if they're not. Projects go off track, metrics aren't met. So we haven't changed how we manage things at all. Diageo always had quite a flexible working culture anyway.
Right.
So the shift post-COVID isn't really a shift. We always, had this kind of culture, which is you have your goals and a set of things that you need to achieve, and how you do that is very much up to you. So I think a good manager can manage their people through the right goal setting and objectives and monitoring, whether someone's sitting next to you or not. I don't think that needs to change at all. I actually think as a leader, trust is incredibly important. Saying to your people, I trust you to do your role. But I think the conversations, it's worth having, kind of conversations with people actually around, for senior people, saying, listen, the juniors need you here to learn from and observe and be mentored. And for the juniors is to say to people, listen, a core part of how you are going to progress in your career and you're going to learn is what you soak up. It's in the informal conversations that you can't have over Zoom. And again, it's part of what we talk in Diageo about being, quite, mindful and deliberate about why we're coming to the office. And for me, I find it massively beneficial to have some days, and I'm like, I guess a lot of people, Monday and Friday tends to be quiet in the office. It's rare that I need to go in. I can really focus and get a lot achieved. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a good proportion of my day, most of my team are in, there's a lot of other people from marketing and innovation in, can have all those little conversations, the nuanced ones that actually progress things. And then every now and again you bump into someone and there's that little bit of magic because you haven't seen them for a while, or they go, oh, I just wanted to ask you about X. So it's having those conversations with people where going, look, let's have the balance right. Let's work out how it works. But actually there's a sense of responsibility for senior people to be available for coaching and mentoring. And for people that are less developed in their career, it's like, you're going to miss out if you're not soaking these things up.
Yeah.
You need to network.
What I'm hearing is just so powerful there. So you absolutely pull versus push, and you've done the pull in a number of smart ways, which is firstly create the environment that they want to come into, give them the reasons why actually coming in is a good thing, and then saying, actually, we really would like you to come in 3 days a week, rather than a number of organizations out there who have gone down the route of, hard and fast, you must be in. Nobody likes to be told, adults don't like to be told what to do, and it just gets people's backs up, even if it's the best thing for the organization. So I think going down the route of saying, this is what we would like to do, this is why, and we're going to create an environment and invest in that environment, just such powerful things to have done there.
And I just love the intentionality and the word that you mentioned, in passing, but so key, is trust. You have to be able to trust your people and your culture, because inclusion and creating this environment for everybody to thrive has been so important to you. It's clear that that's already been part of your DNA, but a lot of companies are having to build this trust, move from this management by presenteeism, and put processes in place to be able to manage performance now that people aren't always physically present in the office. What would you say? How would you help old school leaders, or those who think old school in terms of you must be present and you're only effective if you're working from the office and you have to be in here so many days a week? How would you help them make that mindset shift? Because clearly the Diageo culture is leaps and bounds ahead of organizations that are stuck in the kind of old traditional way of management thinking. I know,
I
good
would
question.
just no, I think I would advocate, the difference it makes as a leader when, you clearly trust your people, and when you shift your mindset from kind of controlling to coaching. So one of the ways I work with my team is I have, every week I have an hour in the diary for a catch up with them. And I say, listen, the core purpose, I say, do not give me a project tracker in that time. The core purpose of that is it's time for us to have a conversation, for me to go, look, what's on your mind? How can I help? Now, sometimes the guys will go, look, listen, I'm super stacked this week. There's nothing I really need to help with. Can we cancel it? And that's absolutely fine. Sometimes it's a relatively short conversation. Sometimes actually we go, should we find some more time later on? Because I can kind of see that you need help. But I've found that, an empowered team that knows, and I diarize how important they are to me, to say, listen, I am here to coach and sort of mentor you in this time, not to supervise you, not to tell you what to do. And the time is controlled by them. It's like, what's on your mind? What do you need help with? That's the kind of core of that. So I think I would just advocate shifting to that, which is, your people have a very, very clear set of mutually agreed goals that are very much achievable. I'm a big fan of the old SMART objectives, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic in a time frame. Those are agreed up front, and then you're there to kind of coach and mentor. That just works better as a leadership style than command and control and dictate. And when you've got empowered people that feel valued, they commit and they deliver.
And they deliver without having to be watched.
Exactly.
Love that. So I have to ask then, what about this other mindset of crossing the personal professional divide? In those one-on-one meetings, have you always had a level of comfort going between whether the challenge was personal or professional? Are you seeing more personal now that, working from home brings home life more into the professional work-life mix? What are you observing with this crossing the personal professional divide in the conversations?
As a leader, the conversation I always have with my people is I say, listen, my commitment is to you as an individual. It's not to work you. It's to you. And it's like I don't think you can separate, necessarily, how you're feeling at work versus how you're feeling at home. Never to intrude. And people choose to share different levels of what's going on in their life with me. And that's absolutely fine. I do not want to, force people or impinge on people's kind of sense of privacy. But it's a relationship. It's always quite personal for me in terms of the people that I'm working with. Is my kind of commitment to them. So I kind of don't see a divide. It's very often driven by them in terms of the depth that they kind of want to go to, especially when because there's a core part of my role as a leader is to help and support people in their development. And if you're having a genuine personal development conversation, you need sometimes to go quite deep. I remember with a former boss of mine, she was really helping me break through in a few things, and she had to, say something. Listen, Jeremy, it is important that we talk about this. And I was like, why do you think we need to talk about me being bullied at school? And she said, well, because I sense that it's left you with some attitudes that are maybe not enabling you to break through as a leader. Like, okay,
Ooh.
I don't. If you insist, I was
Wow.
happy.
Well,
No. But
talk
it's
about
like
getting personal,
we
yeah.
uncovered a whole set of things around, how I got over the bullying, what the mindset and attitude it had left me with, how that was actually causing blocks in relationships, how helping me trust more, etc., etc. So I think if people are willing to, that actually as a leader you need to get that deep with people
Mm.
to help them develop, because for me it's about helping someone develop as a person. There isn't a work Jeremy and a home Jeremy. There's just Jeremy. I need to bring all of me to every aspect of my life, including the freedom to be genuinely honest about who I am and my faith and my weaknesses and my strengths, etc. at work. I don't see a need to have this kind of professional personal divide. It's all of me, and so I don't know. That's a long rambling answer
wow.
to a
No,
simple question,
you
but
didn't
where
ramble at
I think
all.
it's personal. I think as long as people are willing and open to that as a leader, you should be very invested in them and their development, not just how do I make you more effective at work.
But what you're describing, Jeremy, is next level leadership, which is a journey that I think a lot of managers and leaders are being challenged to make now that the hybrid working and flexible working has become more of the norm. Now that home life and work life can no longer be separated, because there was a time, pre-COVID, where lots of people pretended that anything to do with a personal life stops outside the office door, except now there's no office door. So what's the journey then sorry, this is going completely off script, and, take your time to
Enjoying
think
the
about it.
conversation.
What's the journey that you've had to go through as you have become a better leader, able to coach people through their life journey? Because it's not just about the next promotion at work from the way you've described it. What's the journey that you've been through, and what's the journey you'd encourage managers to be intentional about going through so that they can become this manager as coach rather than manager as controller? Make that mindset and behavior change.
I've benefited hugely. I mean, Diageo is a remarkable organisation. I've worked there for a long time. A ton of investment in me in terms of leadership training, and training how to be a coach, training how to be a mentor. I've been invested in so much. It's been such a blessing. For a long time, I used to work for a remarkable woman called Sil Salah, who's no longer working at Diageo, but she was our former CMO. She just taught me an absolute ton of stuff about, bringing your whole self to work, being, sort of genuinely honest. She's the most remarkable leader, mentor, and coach.
Wow.
And really helped me kind of understand, I guess break down some of the barriers that I had about this work Jeremy and then this home life Jeremy. She would often say something quite provocative, actually, which is, I don't believe in this whole concept of work-life balance. And I'm like, seriously, Sil? I don't see you work all the hours that God sends. You're very. And she's like, no. She said, I hate the concept because it seems like work life, as if work is bad and then life is good. And how do I get a balance between the two? She said, I love my work, and of course, I'm very much focused on time with my family, not overworking, having overall balance in my life. But that notion that you might hate your work and you have to balance it with the bits of work that you like, she's like, I love my work. There's joy in it. She would always insist on, she said, listen, you won't necessarily see me doing normal office hours. She would always say, I don't like getting up early and working early in the morning. I will quite often take the afternoon off because I want to go and see my kids playing sport. And then you'll get emails from me, between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock at night, and sometimes on a Saturday and a Sunday, because I'm working my hours out in order to achieve everything that I do with the rest of the commitments that I've got to my kind of family life. She said, if you get an email from me on Sunday, don't answer me, because that's just when I happen to be working, because I took Thursday afternoon off to go see my son play rugby. That type of kind of leadership, I think, is really helpful. And it's, she's helped me learn how to be a kind of a coach and a mentor. And she brilliant results. I would just encourage anyone to look in at great leaders, and you'll see today's great leaders that deliver amazing results are not the old-fashioned command and control. They're coaches and mentors who trust their team.
Who build
Amazing.
relationships with their team.
And who model it, which is what you said.
Absolutely.
Sil, was it Sil?
Sil,
Your
yeah,
boss?
yeah.
Yeah, that's what she did. She modeled it. She spoke about it, and then she modeled it. That this is how it's done, and that's absolutely the journey that a lot of managers and leaders need to be going on now to change the mindset, and therefore become to learn how to be more of a coach and encourage the best out of people rather than demand a certain level of performance.
Such a powerful conversation.
I know.
So many
We might
wonderful
need to
sharings.
change the title.
I think we might have to change the title of this one. Some really good stuff coming from it. But you already shared so many wonderful nuggets. Would there be one additional, or any just as we
Best
close now,
advice?
so wrap, best advice? Any sort of other best advice? Because you've already given us so much, or given our listeners so much. Any other nuggets you've got up your sleeve there you'd like to share? Sort of best advice around relationships that you've come across in the past, and sort of stuff that you'd like to leave with the next generation, stuff to pass on.
Yeah, I mean, the one that kind of came to mind was, assume good intent. So if you're going to go into a relationship or go into a conversation, or especially if you go into something where there's a conflict, situation, if you start from the perspective of thinking, this is fundamentally a good person, they're almost certainly not trying to damage me or hurt me. If you start from the point of going, okay, I'm going to just pause for a second and not react emotionally, and just think there's something here that is probably coming from a position of kind of good. And then also, I think what that does as well is I think sometimes causes you to look in the mirror and kind of go, hang on a second, what is it that I've done to kind of cause this situation? So if you assume good intent, then you have to kind of pause and try and find that and go, hang on, can you help me understand where you're coming from, what your perspective is here? This is a behavior that I'm observing. Actually, am I right? And why is it that that's happening? If I think about a specific situation where early in my time in Diageo, I was having some difficulties working with someone in our supply organization, the manufacturing side of things. So there's me that designs things, and then they have to make things. I felt like there was this barrier, and my immediate emotional reaction was, why is this person trying to stop me from doing my job? And then you move into the, why do they hate me? There's just this Limber in one of your previous podcasts. I love what he said, where he was talking about, the we have to move beyond the reactions of the playground. And it's natural, isn't it? Like, they hate me. Why are they trying to stop me? And I just paused, and I was like, I actually went to see them and sat down. I said, listen, can you please help me understand? Because you and I have had some kind of blocks here. I really value this relationship. It feels really critical to my agenda that we work well together. I just want to understand where you're coming from. And when they explained and when I listened, I was like, oh, okay. And it opened a door for me to be able to go, okay, have I got this right? This is the core thing that you're measured on and what you're being asked to achieve. And I said, here's the core thing I'm measured on and I'm being asked to achieve. I think we can find a way of both being able to deliver those. And it was that kind of, and actually this colleague I've worked with, over having had an initial bumping into conversation, they've turned out to be one of the most powerful people that I've worked with, because we understand what each other are trying to deliver. And I'm, frequently working with her to drive, efficiency and safety in our operations. And she's going, now hang on a second, Jeremy needs to deliver something that's just really beautiful for the consumers. And we're both arguing. I sometimes sit in a meeting with her and she's arguing for it to be beautiful and I'm arguing for it to be more efficient. And I just go, well, because I paused for a second and I was like, I don't think she's fundamentally a bad person. I think there's good intent there and I just need to find it. So I think that would be the advice, which is just, stop from the playground reaction. Assume that there's good intent there and just work until you can find it. And then you'll find a way of both being able to deliver what you want.
What an amazing story. And we don't want to end, but I think that's a great note to end it on. Stop with the playground stuff and do the hard work of understanding what good looks like, what win looks like, and work together to help achieve that. Jeremy, thank you so much for your time, for your passion, for the work that you're doing to not just deliver good results in Diageo, but to make a meaningful impact on the world through the work that you do.
I think there's so many nuggets people will take from this and hopefully apply in their relationships, their work relationships, the way they impact their people in their teams, their colleagues, perhaps even people in their domestic relationships. There's just so much they can take from this one. So thank you so much for all those shares.
I think we have to ask one question because we spoke so much about Diageo's layout and how beautiful it was. Is there an opportunity for Joe Blogs on the street or Jane Blogs on the street to be able to walk into the offices anywhere and see
No,
Diageo?
sadly not. Unfortunately, sorry.
Right next door to the offices, you have a shop though, don't you? Right next door to the offices.
We do, yes. So part of the floor plate is, yes, so 16 Great Marlborough Street, there is a shop that's called The Bar at Home, where you can, anyone can come in and purchase all of our products in a beautifully designed store. That's probably as close as you can get.
There you go. There you go. There had to be something. We've spoken so much about the beauty there. Wonderful. But thank you very much, Jeremy. And to our podcast listeners, we'll invite you to obviously listen to it, but share it, like it, subscribe, do all the things to help us get this out there so that all the wonderful principles about intentional workplace design, collaboration, how to shift from being manager in command and control to a manager as coach. So many wonderful nuggets and principles in there to help us do life better. In this case, it's our Thrive at Work series.
Thrive at Work and Win at Life.
And Win at Life.
Absolutely. So
Wonderful.
thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Been a pleasure.
See you next time.
Yeah, we'll be doing this again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The4Habits for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.